Welcome to the Health Tech Invest podcast powered by Nutera Ventures, your guide to healthcare investing. Join us as we explore interviews with pioneering entrepreneurs, investors, and innovative leaders, helping you spark innovation in the world of venture capital investing. Brad, thank you for joining me on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. It's a little dark out, so it gives you a little bit of context of how late it is. But I really appreciate you toughening it out, and you've got a long commute back to Davis. And you're giving us a lot of your time here, so I appreciate that.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Awesome.
Happy to have a conversation.
Awesome. Yeah. So, launched this podcast about a year and a half ago, and, I interview investors, operators alike, just within the health tech, the digital health, the broader healthcare ecosystem. And I love talking to entrepreneurs because they have the most passion, they're the most intense. And they're so optimistic, which is awesome. I always joke around. Entrepreneurs are a little more optimistic. I think you have to be optimistic.
You have to be, for sure, right?
I think you have to.
It's a little bit different mindset.
That's right. That's right. I think you need to have some optimism to be an investor. Otherwise, you just gave up. But the entrepreneur takes that to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool. So
it takes a very particular personality.
It does. It does. So look, I think just for the audience here, why don't you first tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about your platform.
Wonderful. No, appreciate it. And, kind of in the theme of what we're talking about here today, I grew up with a very entrepreneurial mindset. My two loves growing up were science and business. My parents are both, self-employed founders of their companies, and encouraged, me as a child to do the same. I had a paper route. I had a lawn mowing business. I had a dog walking business.
Cool. Where did you grow up, actually?
I grew up in South Bay area, in California.
Okay. That's very, very conducive to being an
exactly, yeah. A little town called Los Gatos.
That,
is heart of the Silicon Valley, and very, very much in the
home of the Woz. Home of the Woz.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Very nice.
Right.
Very nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So grew up trying to figure out what I wanted to do in life, and was I more inclined to the business side of things? Was I more inclined to the science side of things? I used to read the business section of the newspaper every morning while I ate my cereal.
That's cool. That's cool.
And San Jose Mercury News with all the tech companies that are everything in the area.
That's cool. That's cool.
I was really inspired by the work that a lot of these entrepreneurs and very famous Silicon Valley types had done in creating businesses and opportunities and the difference that they made in the world. And so trying to think about where I kind of fit into that always made more sense on the business side of science.
Okay. So you combine the love.
Kind of combine the two loves. Yeah. I was truly inspired by one of my high school science teachers freshman year in high school.
Okay.
And the experiments that we would do with fruit fly genetics, and all the way back to the basics, and really got a love for what the puzzle that you can do and trying to figure out novel science.
Interesting. So you always gravitated towards the biological sciences as opposed to the physical.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. And this just out of curiosity, out of sincere interest, or was there something about biology that really piqued your?
I just always kind of loved it.
Yeah.
Again, as a child, I raised mice to sell back to pet stores.
Okay, so there's a business to that.
There's a bit. But what I really liked about it is, I was deciding which two mice to put together to get the right babies and different colorings. And, I had a little notebook that I, tried to write down the phenotypes of the mice and things
Interesting.
like that.
Interesting. How old were you?
I was like 10, 11,
really?
12.
And you were getting into genotype, phenotype?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I always had a real interest there.
That's really interesting.
Not, really sure where it came from, but
that's so cool. That is so cool. So did you know what mouse was more valuable than other mice? And did you try to optimize?
Yeah, no, exactly. Trying to get the unique colorings and things like that. You could sell them back to the pet store as these fancy mice for pet owners, not for feeding to mice or feeding to snakes.
Sure. Yeah. So you had a rule. So you had ethics behind it. You were
exactly.
I'm not doing
right.
That.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Right.
Did you ever have that customer that just kept popping in and you're like, yeah, I need a new one? How'd the other mouse go? Yeah.
I just need another one.
Right. Yeah, no, fortunately, I didn't want to go direct to consumer. I just went straight to the business and sold it to the pet store.
Smart. That is
Cut out
such
the
a
middleman,
valuable life lesson.
Yeah.
Go B2B, don't go
B2B.
B2C.
Yep, for
Okay.
sure. Yep.
Okay, that's good. Unless did you have any? I mean, you go B2C if they're big customer, right?
Right.
But you didn't. It was all B2B.
Yep. Yeah.
How
I didn't have a sales force.
Well, I was going to ask at 10, 11, how did you make those sales work? Like, did you go door to door? Did you go to the pet store?
Yeah. So the pet store, our local pet store that I'd buy mice from myself.
Yeah.
And
so that was your customer.
And when I was in there and wanting to get new mice, they're always talking about how their stock was so low and they had hard time sourcing it. I'm like, well, I've got a bunch of babies from my last set that was kind of an accident. Could you take them off my hands for me? And they're like, oh, we'll actually pay you, like, I don't know, what was it, 50 cents a mouse or something like that at the time. I'm like,
that's awesome.
How many of them would you buy from me?
Yeah, that is awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah.
So you did like at 10 years old, you did sort of an unmet needs market analysis.
I guess, not even knowing it, right?
You didn't even know it.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. So how much would I'm sorry, I'm so fascinated by this. I've known you for a number of years. We've been good friends. That's why this is such a special podcast to me. But I had no idea. Stories, right? I didn't know. I did not know about this mouse business. That is so cool. How much could a owner buy the mouse for at the store? Like, what was the price? So they were buying it off of you for 50 cents. What was the pet owner buying?
Yeah, good question. I have to say maybe like $2 or something. $2 like that. So they were getting nice healthy margins.
So you're getting 80% gross margin, like
right?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
75%. What am I saying? Yeah. Okay. I see. So that's good.
Worked out for both parties.
That's good. That's good. 75% gross margin for the store. And then were you tracking how much resources you were putting in?
The problem is every dollar that I made there at the store, I ended up just spending at the store.
Oh, okay.
Buying food or buying new cages.
That is genius.
Buying even more. So,
my God.
I don't know that it worked out quite as a money-making operation.
That was a flywheel for this guy. For the pet store. That was a flywheel for the pet store.
But it allowed me to expand my hobby.
That's awesome.
without coming out of pocket.
That is cool. Yeah. That is cool. It's a win-win. And so you could have boosted the price up for the mouse.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
And whoever the pet owner or the pet store owner was, he may have said, okay, he's going to spend the money in the store.
Exactly right.
Did he know that you were? Well, of course he knew you were spending all that money.
Yeah,
you would probably get paid and then go buy a bunch of things.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Got it.
And I think I got paid in cash. I don't believe I got paid in store credit, but
any tax exemption? Don't go way back.
We won't name the name of the store.
Yeah. That's funny. That's funny. I'm more worried about the pet store than you actually. No, that's interesting. No, that's cool. It's cool how it feels to me like you just always had an interest in the sciences and you applied your business. So you had this kind of, it was almost like an instinct for business.
I guess, right? Yeah.
So then, okay, so this is cool. So starting with mice at the age of 10, you mentioned lawn mowing and like that was such, what business did you start next?
And I can't remember if I told you this story or not before, but in my mid-teens, my sister and I and our next door neighbor got together and formed a business releasing white pigeons at weddings.
You did tell me this. This is a premium business.
Yes. Yeah. And there we were able to, charge a whole lot more than, in the mice thing.
Of course.
And in fact, it put both my sister and I through college.
Wow.
And I think we both got a car out of it, during our teen years as well.
So real money.
Yeah.
Money.
Okay. And we found out, the interesting thing there is, a lot of money in the wedding business. And what we started out was pricing way too low. And there weren't that many customers that were interested. And so then we quadrupled our prices and all of a sudden the customers came flocking to us.
Because people want to go all out for
it. It was, legitimized our business as, not just a couple of teenage kids doing something. And,
So how did you market that business? How did you?
So we would go to wedding trade fair shows and we had our little booth and, we decorated it all up, and we'd actually even bring some live birds sometimes and do a release at a certain time of the day.
That's cool.
And so the couples were there trying to find vendors for who they were going to use for their wedding, and then we would go and, if they were interested in coming out for a visit, they'd come and, they see what it was like to each bride and the groom would release one dove, and then we'd release all the others. So they came out to practice beforehand and make sure it was something they actually wanted to do on their wedding
that
day.
is not something you want to find out on your wedding day, that you don't want to be handling birds.
Exactly, right?
You don't.
And learn to hold it out here and not directly over your white dress.
So I have to ask, were there any, the pigeons probably can't hold it if they have to go. Did you have any episodes or anything like that?
We were very fortunate. We never did. So we would never feed the day of. They'd have their last meal the night before, and it actually encouraged them to come home faster as well.
Wait, so you let these pigeons out in the wild?
So they'd be released at the church, out in front of the church. We would go all the way up to 60, 70 miles away from our house. And they would make it back, in an hour or so.
Wow. So they came back.
Yep.
These were trained. So did you train these pigeons, or did they?
Yeah. You had to, start them young, and then you increase their stamina, take them a little bit further and further out.
How big was the fleet? How many pigeons did you have?
So we probably had, I don't know, 60 or 70 maybe at one point. And, the package would be like 25 doves per wedding. So we could do a couple of weddings at the same time, and if we needed to.
So could you do multiple weddings in a weekend?
We would, yeah. So good part of my weekends growing up were, at least one or two weddings every weekend throughout the course of the summer.
So you wouldn't do two a day. You would do one on Saturday.
You could actually,
You could?
We had,
wow.
we had enough birds that we could do two a day.
Man, that's cool. That's cool. That's a year-round business. Well, not really.
It's summer business mostly.
Summer business. Yeah. I grew up in Chicago, so winters not so much. And certainly not pigeon flying and stuff. No, that's super cool. Yeah, I feel like people, when it comes to their wedding, right? It's such a special day. People care so much about every little detail, and they're going to pay top dollar for a service like this.
Exactly, right? Yep.
And you demonstrate, and you went B2B on this, right? You went to the wedding planners, or the.
We actually, it was really more. Some B2B, but it was a lot of directly.
Directly
to consumer for that one.
Got it. And you would I got you. And then you would still run into these people at wedding like expos and stuff?
Yeah, they come to the expo.
Oh, really? So people planning their own weddings would go to expo.
Would come to right? Yeah. Okay. And we did some stuff with caterers and the furniture businesses.
Amazing.
That helped with the referrals, but most of it was direct to the bride and groom.
Amazing. I remember you telling me that story, and it didn't really sink in until now. Again, very cool. I see the affinity for biology, animals.
Putting the animals in the business together, right?
Yeah. No, it's very cool. It's so funny. So I go fly fishing pretty frequently. I think you've gone with me once or twice with our friend Richard. And so I've gone, when I go fly fishing to other areas, I find that most fly fishermen are very one with nature, and they're very careful when they throw the fish back in the water. And I was very surprised by the connection they have. I'm like, look, you're hooking the fish. Aren't you hurting the fish already? And they're like, no, listen, these fish are make it possible for me to make money. So they viewed the fish as part of their little ethos. They're
biggest
employees.
Conservationists.
They're
right?
business partners. They're business partners, right? And
yeah.
So this is very similar, right? These pigeons were part of the team.
They were the employees, right?
Yeah. Would you kind of okay, between weddings, would you have to train them throughout the week, or would you have to do practice runs?
We did. Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
So you put a lot of work.
Keep them in shape.
Yeah.
Of course, all the the feeding and cleaning and all that other that went along with it. But my mom was in sales, and so she'd put the birds in the back of the car, and whenever she went out to her sales calls in various parts of the Bay Area, she'd go and release them so they could get their practice.
Wow. So so she would just release them, and then they'd come back into the. Wow. These were, so there's some self-selection here, right? There's because presumably not all pigeons have the mental acuity for this.
They're all homing pigeons. They've got, it's instinctive for them.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Homing pigeons are, what does that mean? Sorry.
So they use, back to my 8th grade report on pigeons. Yeah. Their magnets in their brains actually helps them determine the magnetic field of the Earth, which is how they think they can figure out where home is in relation to where they are.
Geolocation.
Yeah. There certainly is an element of visual as well. Once they get close enough, they know the neighborhood, and they can figure out exactly where the house is.
But birds have I've learned from co-founder of one of the businesses we invested in, Dr. Chris Murphy, told me about the vision. So birds have very strong vision.
Very right.
Generally speaking, they can accommodate both long and short distances very quickly and kind of toggle in between the two. Makes their ocular system really impressive.
Exactly.
So that's very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Presumably
pigeons are no different in some respects.
Right? Yeah. Some birds, they migrate like halfway across the world. Right?
That's true.
And go back to their original nesting sites every year.
That's true.
Just amazing creatures.
That's true. That's true. We don't give that enough credit. You see a goose flying around or something like that. That thing could have flown 1,000 miles in like 3 days, 5 days, or whatever. And they're fast, and they're very fast. They're very fast. No, it's amazing. That's really, really cool. No, this is cool. So the homing pigeon business, that's awesome. What next? What?
Yeah. So then, I was off to college.
At UC Davis.
UC San Diego, actually.
Oh, that's right.
Yep,
That's right.
I did my undergrad at UC San Diego.
Yep, that's right.
And I was a general biology major initially. Trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. A couple of quarters in, I decided I was going to do physiology, kind of a pre-med track. That only lasted, maybe a year or so. I decided, no, I'll do the pre-med track, but I don't want to go to med school. This just isn't for me.
What was it? Because most people drop out of pre-med because they're afraid of the science. Like for me, it was organic chemistry, and actually for me, it was biology. I liked orgo. Bio was a different story, but so it's like we're sort of opposites in that regard. But
for sure.
What was it about the curriculum that said med school wasn't for you?
It was more, I kind of got a view of what it would like to live that lifestyle of a doctor, and the idea of the doctor direct to the patient, and I was a little bit weirded out by blood and things like that.
Okay.
So it was more just the lifestyle.
It's definitely up my alley too. When I did a little bit of shadowing of doctors in college, and I was like, ooh, maybe not.
right, yeah.
Popping like cysts and stuff like that. Like kind of gross.
The yuck factor was a little too high.
Yeah. A lot of respect. I mean, doctors do, metaphorically, they do God's work here, right? And it's hard work, and when you have a doctor with tremendous skill and bedside manner, I'm blown away by it.
Sure, right?
But it's not for everyone. Anyway, wasn't your calling?
Wasn't my calling. What I decided, made a better sense for me was nutrition, with the idea of kind of disease prevention as opposed to disease treatment after the fact.
Okay.
And so I took a class in nutritional biology as an undergrad, and really resonated with me, and decided that's what I wanted to do for grad school. And so UC Davis is number 1, number 2 in the country. And so that was kind of the appeal. Of course, being back closer to home didn't hurt as well.
Mm-hmm.
But, came back to UC Davis, did my PhD there.
Awesome.
And then realized there's not a whole lot of money on the prevention side of things. And so kind of, went back towards the other side, more on the therapy side. Had, of course, a lifetime experience in the cancer space. A number of family members that have gone through a cancer journey. Personal, yeah, right. Yeah. My mom's side grew up in the Central Valley. They were all farmers, so a lot of exposure to pesticides and herbicides and things like that. Ooh. So a lot of that family went through their own cancer journeys. And as I was deciding what to do in between college and grad school, my grandma got really sick, with a cancer. And seeing her go through that journey, and at the end of it, her deciding that therapy wasn't worth the side effects that came along with it, deciding just to quality of life through the end was better than another dose of chemotherapy. And so that was really instrumental in my thinking of there needs to be better cancer therapies out there that actually help the patient without the side effects that come along with it. And so it took a little while to find what the best opportunity was there, and I had done another startup. Got interested in the entrepreneurship side of science, in a small business type scenario, and then met my co-founders who specifically were working on a product for cancer without the side effects. And major fit there. Didn't take even a second thought to realize I wanted to team up with them. They had a good experience in the pharmaceutical industry, so I saw it as a real learning opportunity. to be able to do product development on the cancer side of things while learning from people that had a lot of experience on the business side of things.
Very
really
cool.
getting back to, combining my two loves, cancer and the business side of things.
Interesting. So you had this personal draw to the space. You saw loved ones suffer. You had an appreciation for science. So it probably frustrated you to see that there were no solutions for these problems, right? For cancer. And obviously you had that entrepreneurial bug. You built companies in the past. Again, you kind of went through sort of the unmet needs analysis and said, hey, let's do this thing. How did you get introduced to your co-founders here, though? So it sounds like you kind of stumbled upon this company a little bit.
Yeah, a friend of a friend scenario.
Yeah, cool. Very cool.
And
at Davis?
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of my neighbors had met what turned out to be my co-founder.
Okay.
At a networking event. And
okay. Yeah.
He knew I was interested in a new opportunity, and thought that this would be a great fit. And so he introduced the two of us. He actually ended up becoming our first investor.
Really? Okay. Very cool.
And kind of helped kick the project off and get going.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to bring a couple other people on at that point that could help us along with the journey.
Very cool.
And we were off and running at that point.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I've kind of followed your journey over the last couple of years. You have assembled a world-class team of investors and board members. I'm just very blown away by your board of directors and who your investors are. Can you talk a little bit about what's your secret there? I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs listening in would just die for a board like yours. I mean, I shouldn't say that, but they would definitely they put in the time, and oftentimes it's a tough market out there. And so what did you do to kind of make it happen, make it reality?
I'd say first off, we were very fortunate. And
so luck, it's all about luck.
A little bit of luck. Yeah, it's meeting the right people at the right time.
Sure.
So, to put some names to this, Moneta Ventures is our lead investor, our board members.
Awesome.
The GP of the fund was going through a cancer journey with it. And so, much like myself, he had seen how horrible the system was, what the treatment options were.
Yeah.
And so when we met and, told him what we were working on, it resonated in a way that, right to the heart. And so they're not traditionally a biotech life science investment firm.
Yeah.
But they
They're
really
more SaaS and
yeah. But they saw what they were doing, they liked what we were doing, and fortunate for us, they were willing to take a bet on us.
That's awesome.
At a very early stage. We had our cell-based data at that point. We hadn't even gone to our animal models. And so it was a little bit more than back of a napkin, but not a whole lot more.
Sure.
And so just internally grateful for them for taking that bet on us and really allowing us to have the funds to go through and prove the concept out in our animal models.
Interesting. Well, you say it's a little bit of luck, or you say you've been fortunate, but you're being a little bit modest here.
That was the 50th or 100th person that we talked to that we found that luck, right?
That bingo. I think that's the key. So my old mentor, a mentor of mine from a previous venture fund, used to tell me all the time. He's like, yes, to be an investor, you must be lucky. But you notice the harder you work, the luckier you get. Right? So I think it's sort of like a luck event is a low probability event. If you don't take enough, really concise / risk adjusted shots on goal, you won't get there, right? So you don't want to just shoot randomly and talk to random people and think something's going to happen. You can take a lot of shots on goal. If they're not accurate, or you've been putting an effort in to taking a smart shot on goal, it's not going to happen. It's a waste of time, right? You might get some luck in that, but it's typically a waste of time. But if you kind of know the direction you're trying to go to, and where you're going and the direction you're going, you can at least take shots in that direction.
Exactly.
To keep riffing off the metaphor, right? So it's you work harder than anybody I know, because I see you at a lot of events. You're winning accelerators, competitions. A lot of people. You've introduced me to a ton of people. I feel like you've been a force multiplier. So to me, you're smart. You know how to network. You're smart. Use your time wisely. I think I observe you and learn from you, I think that to me is the message here. Right?
For sure. And I think, part of it is what you learn along the way. What works, what doesn't. And, you see other folks that are
Don't
out there
keep doing the same thing over and over.
Exactly.
Learn from your mistakes. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And, you find groups, plugged for, Sacramento area. There's, it's a very supportive ecosystem in that area, from angel investors all the way up that help from the outset of the companies really get you launched and help make those introductions. And that's how we got put in touch with Moneta Ventures, that maybe we wouldn't have thought it was the exact target to go after, but with people to introduce us and say this is a group that's definitely worth talking to.
Awesome.
There's that element to it as well.
Yeah. So tell me, spend a minute kind of describing you've got the Sacramento region, and then you've got Silicon Valley. There's a lot of land in between the two, but it's actually like door to door. You can be anywhere in like 2.5 hours, right? So it's not that far away. What is the connectivity like between Sacramento and the Bay Area? Do you see strong connectivity there?
I'd say over the last couple of years that things are improving, but there's still a very long way to go there. And the distance is short enough that the entrepreneurs can go down to the Bay Area. And not a lot of investors that are coming the other direction. Yeah. But it's entirely doable for us to go down there and talk to Bay Area investors, people in the field. Of course, there's a ton of biotech in the San Francisco area. Yeah. So
is there really?
There is. There really is.
Very cool.
Yeah. So it's
any specific therapeutic areas of focus? Is it oncology, neuro?
Yeah, across the board. All the major pharmas are down there in South San Francisco, Oyster Point.
Oh, area. Sorry, you're talking about South San Francisco. Sorry, I thought you were still describing Sacramento. Got it. Yeah. Got it. Yeah. Okay.
So it's, as you mentioned, it's a couple-hour journey, but totally able to get in front of those folks. And we do a lot of events coming down to the Bay Area.
How about Sacramento? Is there a pharma ecosystem there?
There really isn't.
There is not.
There's projects that come out of the university, the therapeutic bent to it. Yeah. There's obviously a lot of ag in the area and that sort of. But
UC Davis ecosystem.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's pretty limited in terms of therapeutics in Sacramento area, and so because of that, there's not a lot of investors that have that as a focus in that area, and so we have to travel a little bit to find those people.
And you do. You're out here a lot. It's awesome. It's great to have you. Always you pop in quite a bit. It's awesome, and I go out there from time to time. It's great. Personally, I found it to be a very fruitful ecosystem.
For sure. Exactly.
Yeah. So kind of going back to ARIZ, which is your current startup, oncology therapeutic. Tell us a little bit about what ARIZ is. Like, I know it's again, the goal here is to create cancer therapy without side effect profile, right? But what is it?
Yeah. So, maybe it's a
geek out on us.
Maybe it's a buzzword or whatnot, but what we see is the future of cancer therapy.
Okay.
Going through and targeting and eliminating cancer at the genetic level.
The genetic level. Okay.
So, in that's 20 plus years now since the mapping of the human genome, the thought was always, we'll find the genes that are connected to the diseases, we'll be able to cure those diseases. And in some ways that thesis has played out, but I think it's been a lot slower than a lot of people thought it was going to be. But that's really the concept that we embrace. We can identify, the genetic causes. Hopefully they're the early changes, as we believe our target is, the early change in the cancerization of the cell allows us to identify those patients early, get them on treatment early, with a drug that actually applies to the driver of the genetic driver of their cancer.
Interesting.
And then we can kill those cancer cells without killing the normal healthy cells. You're not going to have the toxic side effects that you do with a lot of these, toxic payload type drugs.
So I hear a lot about cell and gene therapy, right? Is this a part of cell and gene therapy?
So what we do is siRNA-based therapies. Okay. So si, small interfering RNAs. It's a short oligonucleotide sequence, and siRNAs are I think really coming into their own. It's the heyday for oligo-based medicines, as we're really trying to take advantage of the learnings from the genetic side of things and translate it to medicines. And so the SI modality has now, got some good traction.
Okay.
And so, it's a much more compelling case for founders and investors to go into that space to be able to utilize the siRNA modality. There's now 7 or 8 different FDA approved products
really
that are
in
in the siRNA
Okay.
space. And so the FDA is familiar with what it takes, and so that pathway is already mapped out. It's easier to get through the FDA regulatory pathway.
These are pretty recent approvals, or
2018 was the
okay.
first.
Oh, this is the first. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're
6 already. Yeah, 8. You said 8.
7
Wow.
or 8. Yeah, I've
Wow.
lost track a little bit. But
That's that's awesome.
Yeah. So we're getting company launches with $100 million seed or seed rounds, Series A rounds.
Wow.
That the investors are taking big bets on this space. And so it's an exciting time to be in the siRNA field.
What is so promising about the siRNA field?
So the precision medicine concept, you can go in there, you can selectively eliminate the cancer cause or the disease causing gene, eliminate that from the cell, and not have that as a disease causing source anymore. And so the challenge, siRNAs have been around for a little while. They had initial bump of interest in the early 2010s. And what they realized at the time is the delivery technology was not up to speed at that point.
Okay.
And so going from, the modality of being able to go directly against those cancer-causing genes, you have to actually get it to the cell itself.
Okay.
So in addition to our work in developing siRNAs, we've also put an effort into developing delivery system.
Okay.
And so we now combine our 2 different technologies to knock down the oncogene, but also calcium phosphate-based nanoparticle.
Oh, interesting.
That homes directly to the cancer cells through a receptor that's overexpressed on the surface.
We were talking about homing pigeons earlier.
It's
now you've
full
developed,
circle.
You've developed a calcium phosphate nanoparticle.
I like that. I hadn't realized that. Right? Yeah.
Man, it's all this.
I need to change my analogy.
From weddings to killing cancer. I mean, what a
direct link.
Direct link. It's amazing. That's amazing. I love it. I love it. How did you discover the nanoparticle? Was that part of? So did all this stuff exist? Was there a prototype when you joined, or like when you joined? What was it, and then what did you do? A little bit more into the origin story. Origin story, please. So we were fortunate to have identified a researcher down in the San Diego area that had discovered this family of histomethyltransferases, which is the target that we're going after. And he did some exquisite academic work connecting these genes to a number of different cancer types. But as an academic, these are the gene targets. Correct?
Yeah. Okay. But as an academic, he, that was the extent of his work. And so we picked up where he left off. He was an early advisor to the company, got us up and going, and we picked one of his most exciting targets, known as PRDM2.
Yep, I remember that from your deck.
and what he had found is it connected it to a dozen or more different cancer types, one of which was lung cancer. And so we picked up on that. We identified that there was an area of major unmet need within non-small cell lung cancer. And we had a therapeutic target that could potentially go after a very large percentage of the population in lung cancer. Upwards of maybe 70% of patients are known to have a disruption in this gene. And so it's a novel target, but screaming for the opportunity to have a therapeutic developed to target this particular gene. And so combination of knowing about the target, the biology of the target, we saw that the siRNA modality made the most sense for going after this particular target. And siRNAs are not going to be the drug of choice for all targets, but utilizing them where their strengths, provide the most benefit is going to create a better drug. And so it was a really good match in order to be able to go after a truncated version of this gene that exists in the cancer cells, where our siRNA can specifically target that truncated version without harming the normal healthy version. And so that's how we avoid side effects as we go after the version that causes the cancer. But even if it was to get into normal healthy cells, it wouldn't have any effect at all.
Interesting. Very interesting. So the name ARIZ, I thought there was a gene associated with ARIZ. So you're saying PRDM2.
Yeah, so PRDM2 has 2 isoforms, the full length and the truncated version. And they're known as RIZ1 and RIZ2. So RIZ and then ARIZ for arise.
I see. You couldn't just call it RIZ.
Couldn't just call it RIZ,
slang,
right?
like today's vernacular, the RIZ. Had to call it ARIZ.
There's a Russian acronym that is ARIZ.
Oh, there is.
And it stands for a technique of problem solving by breaking things down into very small pieces.
Okay.
And it made a lot of sense. Cancer, in order to find the solution for cancer, you're going to have to go down and break it down to the smallest pieces and build back up. So, the
multiple meanings.
The correlation between the two just made too much sense.
I love it. Yeah, I love
kind of a perfect naming.
The multiple meanings there.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
Yeah,
That's incredible. So that makes sense. Cool. So where are you guys at now? What do you currently have, and how much more do you have to go before this thing becomes commercial?
So to take a step just a little bit back, we were able to take that research, develop a therapeutic approach, and then really got to work on screening for the best molecule that we could come up with, and then testing it in the cell models and then in the animal models. And so we've been able to make it significantly down the pathway of drug development to the point now we have very exciting animal data. We're dramatically inhibiting tumor growth in our mouse models.
In mice.
With mouse models with human cancers,
which you used to breed in your younger years.
Again, full circle, right?
Full circle. I love it. That's cool.
Who knew?
Who knows? You're not having to breed them anymore, though. You're buying them for 50 cents from someone else, right? So that's good. Good.
Unfortunately, with my childhood experience with the mice, I can't do any of the animal work myself because of my love for the living species. So, we find groups that do the animal testing for us.
Okay, good. That's great. So
I would just try and rescue all of them out of their cages. I'm sorry, we're not doing this experiment. I go off and try and sell them to a pet store.
I have a soft spot for animals too. I hear you on that one. But look, somebody's got to do this work, right? And I think so. It's interesting. So you are doing animal studies now.
We are, but we're also looking towards the new FDA guidance to try and avoid a lot of the burden on animals.
Okay.
So this is an entirely separate conversation, but AI-based ways to shorten the process, get some knowledge there. More of like an ex vivo testing with spheroids and things like that.
Okay.
You can avoid some of the animal burden that way. So we're looking into that as well, but the gold standard really still is the mice models, particularly within the cancer space, where the models are well developed.
A really, really smart co-founder scientist friend told me once. It was actually, again, Dr. Chris Murphy. I speak so frequently about some of the things he says, but he had made a comment that, because he invited me to this call with a bunch of his other co-founders for another company that he started, which is in the ophthalmology space, right? Or the eye care space. And a bunch of guys were, on this Zoom, and they were talking about their mouse data. And then one of the guys is like, oh my God, we've cured almost every illness in mice. If we could only do that in humans, right? And I forget how he actually said it, but it made me crack up so hard. And it also made me think about, a little bit around, the animal studies out there and how reliable they are in predicting therapy in humans. Can you elaborate a little bit about that? I mean, that's the translational sort of research, right?
Exactly, yeah. And in some cases it's a drug specific question. In some cases it's a field related question.
Okay.
But
so you're saying some fields there's more translation, others more difficult?
Yeah. And particularly when you're using mouse models that have spontaneously generated a mouse cancer, you're not going to have the same translatability to human, which is why we like to do xenograft models of human cancer cells implanted into the mouse.
Oh, interesting.
And obviously, there's limitations to that as well, and it requires further testing beyond the mouse models to really know what you're sitting on in terms of a drug asset. But you've got to start somewhere. You've got to take the best shot that you can with the best models that are available. And so the mouse models do a very good job of weeding out things that won't work.
Oh, I see.
But then there's things that work that won't end up working in humans. But at least you've gotten rid of
ruling things out.
Exactly.
Got
exactly.
It.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So at least you're not testing all million different things on higher species or all the way to humans. You're able to weed out some of the things that likely won't ever work.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. So you're in animal trials. What's it going to take to get to human trials from this point on? What's kind of the next? Presumably, that's one of the next steps. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a big part of that is the safety and toxicity testing.
Okay. Okay.
And so that's traditionally done
Is
with
that phase one?
even before phase one is into humans.
Oh, so you're not talking
Still
about
preclinical.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're talking about safety for just animals.
Within animals.
Within animals.
Yeah.
Okay.
So before you go into humans, you have to go through an FDA approval process, which is called the IND, or the Investigational New Drug.
Got it.
And
Yeah.
once you get your IND approval, then you can go into human trials. But before that, you have to show, and traditionally it's two species, normally rats, and then dogs or monkeys or pigs.
Okay.
And
Not mice.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And so those are a little bit more similar to the human condition. So you see, if toxicities crop up in those experiments, you've got better knowledge base before you go into humans that way.
I see. I've heard that before. I've heard pigs. I've heard that pig organs are kind of react similarly to especially when it comes to like cytotoxicity and stuff like that, or toxicity to certain drugs. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So next step will be, pigs, dog, the other animals you sort of mentioned, and then you go into human.
Then we go to humans.
After the IND though. First you need that IND.
Correct.
Yeah. No, it's very cool. That is very cool.
And then, of course, once you get into humans, you want to start in a very low dose. Make sure you're not going to see any toxicities that maybe didn't crop up in your previous studies. And then, then you can do a dose escalation at that point and see, are you able to ramp up to a high enough dose to see the efficacy without having the toxicity that comes along with it.
Amazing. So when does ARIZ come to the world? I mean, this sounds fascinating. This sounds fabulous, right? So a lot of cancer on my mother's side of the family, throat, lung cancer, liver cancer runs rampant. Also, my mom came from a farming community, so
I wonder, right? There's something to that.
May have been related to that. But the cancer does run rampant, and I have friends who've had it, and it's really sad. The stories are sad. And I do see that chemotherapy, the outcomes are not fabulous, right?
Correct.
Like the side effects are terrible, but the outcomes do not justify not only the quality of life, but also the economic impact many times. Like people are mortgaging their homes to get these chemotherapies. Can you talk a little bit about the existing therapies out there, and like where's ARIZ going to play in the low cost, high outcome space, in the premium pricing, high outcome space? What's your kind of vision for?
Yeah. So, standard of care is traditionally, cut and burn and poison. Either trying to take the cancer out surgically, hitting it with radiation, or chemotherapy. And now there's
brute force.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There have been more drugs that are more in the targeted side of things. It's still a very low percentage of patients that that qualify for those targeted therapies, because those driver genes just aren't known for a lot of patients' types of cancers. And in some cases, I had an experience with a good friend that got lung cancer. And lung cancer, one of the first things they do is they take a biopsy and see what mutations you might have, so they can put you on a targeted therapy. And we were waiting anxiously for the results of that, hoping that there was, one of these known mutations that had a drug already developed, so that she would have a better outcome. And fortunately, she lucked out, in quotes, because she had a cancer that had a drug that was already developed for it.
Okay, interesting.
And so she's been on that for 3 years now, and unfortunately now, starting to see some non-effectiveness, and cancer starting to come back. But these drugs, they work for a while and then they stop working, and you got to go on to the next drug. A lot of these patients, by the time you get to a new therapy that's in a clinical trial, some of these patients have been on 4, 5, 6 different drugs, trying to get a hold of their cancers.
So the value of ARIZ would be, your body, since you're fighting the cancer at the core, right? And at the genetic level, I should say.
Exactly.
You're training your body to not only suppress the cancer, but also fight it, right? So is this Is this not something that the body would get used to over time?
So
Yeah.
So the concept, at least, and we'll see if it plays out, as we get further along in our development. But the PRDMs are one of the early changes in cancerization of the cell, because they sit at the top of a number of these different signaling pathways. And cancer is very good at upregulating other pathways in order to survive and continue to grow.
Yeah.
It really is the enemy within.
Yeah.
So we hope by targeting the top of those pathways that we're regulating a number of downstream signaling pathways simultaneously.
I see.
So even if the cancer tries to evade, whatever drug it's getting by upregulating another pathway, it's not going to be able to, because we're up above that earlier on in the process. And so
upstream in the value chain.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
So, hopefully the chance of evasion is a lot less. We like to see this as a cure for cancer. And not just, a 3 or 4 year life extension. And so, in terms of the value proposition, I think people would pay, a good amount of money to have that cure.
100%. Yeah. Life is precious, and cancer, if we could, I think I read an article somewhere, if we could find a cure for cancer, that would certainly promote longevity by orders of magnitude.
Exactly.
We add a lot of years to our lives, right? Sure. I remember reading an article, this is a long time ago, that actually talks about cancer as the disease of aging, right? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I do see a lot of younger people getting cancer now. Does this mean we're aging faster? What's going on? Yeah.
I think that phrase is probably an older phrase, because people didn't used to live as long as they have in the last couple of generations.
Yeah.
And so cancers are cropping up as people are living into their 80s. Certainly not the case for all cancer types. And interestingly, as you mentioned, even cancers that people normally got when they're older are coming up earlier.
Really?
So, a lot of 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, getting diagnosed with cancer.
Why is that?
I'd say we live in a very chemical world right now.
Yeah.
Whether it's the chemistry that we've invented for other purposes, or environmental toxins that are just in our environment now. And so the body is not equipped to deal with some of the things that have been invented and introduced to the world in the last couple of generations.
100%. All the processed foods, all the pesticides we use, and it sounds like the world's gaining awareness around it, and we're trying to make changes, but those changes aren't happening fast enough. And look, given the last 80 years of processed foods and essentially feeding our bodies these chemicals, it's going to be really hard to kind of reverse the effects of that.
Getting back to the concept that, I had thought that prevention maybe was the better way to go. I think it's going to probably take a couple of generations of trying to emphasize prevention. That, the therapies are still going to be required, even if we get to the point of no new cancers. Or, we know where all the cancers are coming from.
I see. No, that's awesome. So last question on ARIZ, because, I do have another question for you on it, but not specifically to ARIZ. But with regards to the therapy you're building, when do you expect this to be in human? When is this therapy going to be approved for broader use in your mind?
Exactly. Yeah.
What's your prediction? I know it's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell, but we're significantly down the pathway in drug development right now. So we've got a nice view of what the pathway looks like for us to get into humans.
Got it.
And we're not as far away as we used to be.
Good.
We're looking at under 2 years if all goes well. Maybe even less, as this new FDA guidance may not require as many animal tests, so that it speeds up the process, reduces the cost.
Awesome.
Which is great. But we're looking 1.5 years, 2 years if all goes well, to be able to start helping humans out.
Look, I'm a big fan of regulation. Obviously, we need it so that we don't cause harm to each other. But some of the regulation inhibits some of the innovation. So it's great to see that there's some restrictions that are changing, that are helping you get your innovation through the pipeline,
I think,
the funnel.
One of the interesting things that came out of COVID was shortening the process here. Maybe we don't need to go through all the hoops and check all the boxes. And so I think there's a little bit of different thinking that's out there right now in terms of getting to patients that, it's a last resort for a lot of these patients.
Yeah.
And getting an option available to them and seeing if we can save lives.
Awesome. Well, you've built this company and you're rocking and rolling. It's entrepreneurs out there, right? This is really, I think, for the entrepreneur out there. But what sort of challenges and learnings have you garnered along the way?
Yeah, so many. I feel like it's
you had to pick only a few.
I feel like it's a new one every day.
Yeah.
I wake up every morning not really knowing what my day is going to be looking like, because
That's right.
there's all these. Right. Wow, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. I hear you.
And so pick up a lot of skills along the way, figure out how best to tackle the big problems and maybe try and avoid some of the small problems.
So key learning is how you triage your problems and your challenges.
For sure. Yep. And finding the people that can help you along the way.
Yeah.
Maybe you haven't seen this problem before, but other people have.
Yeah.
And so, we've got a great investment team. We've got a great set of advisors that have brought drugs to market previously, that know the process, that can really kind of help us along the way. But one of the challenges right now that a lot of the entrepreneurs are facing is a challenge to science, I guess. That has come up on the grant side of things that a lot of folks rely on in order to get their companies up and going.
Sure.
A lot of different changes within drug pricing and all those other things that have made it a lot more difficult for investors to even decide what the forecasts look like. And so we've all been dealing with a slowdown in funding, or a changing in the funding environment in the last couple of years. That I think everybody's figuring out how to navigate. Relationships become a lot more important, I think, in this day and age. We're working hard to develop those relationships and not just trying to hit up every investor that's out there.
Yeah, it's funny about drug pricing. I actually interviewed PBM executive on one of my podcasts, so I'll send you the link after.
Perfect.
But no, it's drug pricing in and of itself is a whole topic. I mean, we talked about it for hour and a half actually during the session, and it's a convoluted space. It's convoluted. You're building a pharma company, right? A new age, a new innovative way of drug delivery. And it's super, super innovative. But by the time it gets to the patient, it goes through such a convoluted value chain, right? And so in your mind, if you had to come up with an ideal way of getting this into the patient, right? What would that utopia look like, right? For ARIZ to be in every appropriate cancer patient to essentially save their lives, how would you get it to the patients?
So I think one of the benefits to the approach that we've taken is that we're going after a genetic target. So that means that by definition we have a biomarker for the patients that are actually going to respond to our drugs.
Oh, got it. So it's not going to work on everyone.
Wouldn't work on everyone, but we can test the people beforehand and see if they have the driver for the target for the drug that we're developing. If they have that change in their body, then they're probably going to be able to respond to this drug.
And what % of the population is that?
So the reason why we went into the lung cancer space is about 70% of patients are known to have a disruption in our target.
Interesting.
And so the lung cancer therapeutic market right now is very segmented into a number of different mutations, usually later stage. Some of these mutations crop up. Drugs are against 1% or 5% of lung cancer patients, but we'd really like to be able to go and help all 70% of those patients, that have that particular change that's leading to their cancer.
That's a big number.
It's a big number. It's a big number.
70% is a big number, and lung cancer is big.
Yeah. So really being able to make a benefit for a lot of patients that are out there that are really in need.
So smokers versus non-smokers. I know we've had this conversation before. I've read reports, people that don't smoke get lung cancer, right? What does the distribution and the difference look like? Is it, do smokers have is it 10 times more smokers with lung cancer, or what's the distribution look like?
Yeah, and I feel like it's changing quickly. So I'm probably not up on the latest data.
Yeah.
I was hearing something lately, just in the last 10 years, the demographics on high school smokers has changed dramatically.
They're all vaping.
they're all vaping now. But actual cigarettes is down like under 1% or something like that. Yeah,
it's very small.
So, that's really encouraging to see. But of course, people are getting lung cancer for other reasons.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because they're not smoking, they're actually, the cancer is coming up for another reason. Or it could just be, the other things that are in our world at this point.
Could be other chemicals, could be a genetic factor, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, you think particularly with patients that are getting this younger, there's probably something else out there in the world other than, their genetics. But there's quite a few patients that never smoked a day in their life, weren't around people who were smoking, so you're not getting your secondhand smoke. They're still getting lung cancer.
Yeah, it really breaks my heart.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart. Yeah. We see this with COPD, right? I think COPD is a market segment one of my portfolio companies is in, and it's got a negative connotation, and so has been a little bit woefully underfunded because it's usually associated with smoking.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. No, there's
but there are people
you did this to yourself mentality, right?
Yeah.
That's very unfortunate.
Yeah. But we're seeing people that have smoked get COPD as well, right? So it's a nasty affliction. Like the lungs are so core, right? Like being able to breathe it's very satisfying. It's an aspect of your life that you really appreciate, and when you can't, it really affects quality of life, right? It's been sad to learn more about the afflictions with the lungs, right? It's really unfortunate. And
something that I heard the other day that I hadn't realized is the lungs are really quite fragile. And way down deep in the lungs where you're wanting oxygen to transfer to the blood on the other side, there's like one cell on one side and one cell on the other. And so that layer is
capillary
just
action,
so
right?
thin that you get something down in your lungs. It's really easy to, cause a disruption.
Really interesting.
For COPD reasons that often unfortunately turn into cancers for a lot of patients. It's really not surprising. The lungs are a fragile organ.
Interesting. I've seen videos of the inflated healthy lung and then the inflated, COPD or emphysema lung. And look, the smokers obviously have really putting a lot of stress on the body. So without a doubt, it makes me realize smoking has got to be the worst thing for you, right? And I'm not a smoker and have no intention to smoke. But this vaping thing, actually, I watched a documentary about it. Vaping can't be good for you either. And it surprises me that people thought that somehow vaping, which is inhaling chemicals, was somehow better than smoking, right? It was a little bit of cognitive dissonance there.
And some clever, business marketing, messaging,
very much,
that I think a lot of people thought this was a safe alternative to smoking.
That's right.
And we're really realizing now it's not what it was advertised.
The Juul movement. Yeah, I watched that documentary, and they really made it sexy, right? They turned the advertising and the packaging into like
bright colors,
Apple, like an Apple, iPod. Like you're opening up a mobile device. It's got the cool packaging. It's slick. It's easy to use, right? I mean, it's really sad. I know the smoking's down, but I don't know what the vaping statistics look like. But before all the restrictions, which I know afflicted San Francisco, Bay Area, and all that, like 8 in 10 high schoolers, don't quote me on this, were vaping.
Gosh,
it was really crazy.
Number.
It was really high. Don't quote me on that, but it was shockingly high. Like 8 or 10 are either actively vaping or have vaped in the last 6 months or something. It was very high. I didn't see that when I went to high school, again, older guy, probably about the same age here. We didn't see that many smokers. Like people were already talking about smoking being kind of bad for you or whatever. And
right.
There were your occasional, smokers from time to time.
There was that section of school where you didn't go to if you didn't want to see that, right?
Exactly. But they would go hide behind, they'd go to the corner and smoke a
cigarette.
But
not in most cases vaping. It's really out in the open.
Yeah, it's out in the open. It's in the locker rooms. It's on airplanes. I mean, they obviously outlawed a lot of that stuff, but it's fascinating to me. And it scares me because those chemicals are just, there's so much stress on our bodies as it is from an environmental perspective. And you add something like that to your body, that can't be great for the long run, right? It can't be. So I'm glad.
The power of addiction is strong.
So the addiction piece, that's even another aspect of this, right? Because they were claiming, like Juul was claiming, there was no addiction. There were no addictive properties. They said it's less addictive than cigarettes. Like, what are you talking about? You're inhaling nicotine, right? They were saying, well, no, the regular smoke has a more, has more addiction potential, right? Because of how the nicotine gets absorbed or something like that. But nicotine itself, yes, may not cause the cancer, right? It may not be the nicotine itself, but it's also warping your dopamine receptors, right? And causing emphatic, urge to smoke. I mean, the kids in the middle, grade schoolers, junior high students getting into nic fits, nicotine fits, right? It's crazy. Right? It's crazy what was going on. Anyway.
There's not enough challenges in the world out there already for kids.
Just imagine that. Yeah, imagine that. Man. So, what a great conversation. I learned so much more about you in this conversation, and really cool to have been part of your journey over the last couple of years and learn more about the history there. And I'm looking forward to being part of the future too, right? So I'm really looking forward to taking ARIZ to the next level and helping you scale this thing out, because I'm personally very passionate about what you're doing. I think it's great. And cancer it's a big problem, right? And it sounds like this could be a platform for not only lung cancer, but all cancers. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. We're getting away from like location-based cancers, particular organ type or whatever, to more what's the genetic driver of cancer.
Awesome.
So the future is, very interesting to see where we go with.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited. The future is bright. Any final words for our listeners, and then tell us where we can follow you so we can check out ARIZ.
Yeah, so ARIZBio.com.
ARIZBio.com. That's ARIZ Bio.
BIO, yes.
.com.
.com. We're on LinkedIn under ARIZ Precision Medicine.
Awesome.
We email brad@arizbio.com if you want to get in touch with me directly.
Perfect.
And happy to be a part of this. Hopefully, if there's entrepreneurs out there that are looking for tips.
Absolutely.
To be a
and
part
investors
of
and investors looking to invest in disruptive precision medicine company. Let's do it.
Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Such a pleasure, Brad. Thanks again for being on. Thanks for making it here.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us on the Health Tech Invest podcast, powered by Natera Ventures, your go-to source for healthcare and tech venture investing. For additional information, resources, and ways to connect with us, please visit NateraVentures.com. Together, let's spark innovation for the future of tech and healthcare investing.